Imagine a country, a democracy, where the people think they're choosing their leaders, but the real power sits in the hands of a few men. Men who were never elected, men who answer to no one, men who can make a prime minister and destroy one, all before your morning tea or coffee. Men who spent a decade convincing an entire nation to despise a prince and his wife, and who are now using that same machine to decide who runs a country. That country, the United Kingdom. And last week, everything just got, well, it seems anyways, a little bit worse. Stay with me, because what just happened in Britain is not just a political story. It is a warning. It's a masterclass in manipulation, and it connects directly to something you've been watching for years, something that you already know. A prince, a duchess, and the most sophisticated smear campaign of the 21st century. The names change, the faces change, but the hands pulling the strings, they never change. This is a story of who really controls Britain and what it's going to take to stop them. Welcome. This is Majesty Sussex Report, and I'm Antonio. Thank you for spending some of your valuable time here with us. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for sticking around. June 22nd, 2026, Keir Starmer walked out of 10 Downing Street, and he did not walk back in as Prime Minister. He stood there, composed, voice steady, and said, "Every choice I have made has been centered around prioritizing the nation I cherish. This is the reason I will step down as the leader of the Labour Party." And just like that, Britain had its 7th Prime Minister in just 10 years. You heard me right, 7. So let that sink in for a minute. The United States has had 2 presidents in that same window. Canada, 2 prime ministers. But Britain, well, 7 in a decade. Now ask yourself this: is that democracy functioning, or is that democracy collapsing? Because this isn't just a man quitting. This is the collapse of something much, much larger. And the media, the same media that helped engineer this collapse, was already writing the obituary before Starmer even stepped to the microphone. He came to power after 14 years of conservative government, 14 years that left Britain economically fractured, socially underfunded, and institutionally exhausted. Austerity gutted public services. Brexit ripped apart trade relationships worth hundreds of billions of pounds. The NHS was brought to its knees. Over 7 million people on waiting lists. Child poverty rose while billions in COVID PPE contracts were handed to Tory party donors. And then came Labour. Labour won in 2024, a historic landslide, one of the largest majorities in modern British political history. The people were ready. They were desperate for change. And then, well, in less than 2 years, it unraveled. Local elections in May 2026, catastrophic results for Labour. Internal party revolt over welfare cuts and the Gaza-Israel conflict. Approval ratings in free fall. His own cabinet secretary publicly signaling he was reflecting on political realities. But I need you to hold on to the most important question in all of this. Why did Labour fail so fast? And more importantly, who needed them to fail? Before we talk about who broke Starmer, we have to talk about what he actually inherited. Because context is the one thing the British press does not, let me say that again, context is the one thing the British press does not want you to have. Here is what 14 years of conservative government, the Tories, actually did to Britain. This is not opinion. This is documented fact, okay? The longest sustained period of real wage stagnation in over 200 years. Not a recession. A generation of working people earning less than their parents. An NHS waiting list that hit 7.6 million people. 7.6 million human beings waiting for operation, treatments, and diagnosis while conservative government cut NHS budgets in real term. Brexit. Sold to the British public as liberation, cost the UK economy an estimated £100 billion in lost trade by 2023 alone. The Office of the Budget Responsibility confirmed it reduced UK trade by about 15%. 15%. Now keep all of this in mind. Keep all of this in mind. COVID PPE corruption, billions of pounds funneled through the VIP lane to Tory connected donors. A court later ruled the scheme unlawful. And yet, and this is the part that should enrage most people, okay? When Labour came to power and the damage didn't disappear overnight, and I said it, I said they're not going to give him time to do things. Mind you, I also think he made some really stupid decisions, but that's not here nor there now. So when the damage didn't disappear overnight, the same newspapers that cheered everyone for those conservative decisions turned on Labour instantly, viciously. So when the Conservatives did it, the newspapers cheered. Oh, this is the right way to do things. This is a budget that the market will love. This is the thing that is going to take Britain out of whatever, right? So they did not give Labour a chance. Everything Labour did, they would attack it. Labour wasn't described as a party that inherited a broken country. They were framed as the cause of the broken country. So when the NHS lines was still long, right? When the period for you to get treatment is still long away, all of a sudden everyone got amnesia. It had nothing to do with what the Conservatives did. Now it's all on the backs of the Labour government. The same thing happens in the US when you have, and these are facts. I'm not inventing things, folks. Republican governments, the ones that are supposed to be fiscally conservative and responsible, always leave the country in enormous amount of debt They usually tank the economy, and it always takes a democratic administration to actually stabilize things, put things back in order. And almost always, when the Democrat leaves office, they leave it with a surplus. They leave it with the economy doing well. And here comes in the Republicans, and they just create a disaster again. But for some reason, people don't get that, or they expect when the Democrat goes into office that everything is supposed to be magically fixed within a couple of months. And that is why that orange person in the Oval Office, when you hear him speak, he will say, oh, you know, the eggs at the supermarket are still expensive, but you know who's to blame for that? You know who's to blame for that? The radical woke Democrats. Oh, inflation is still high after I've been in power for so many years. Well, it is still high because you know why? Because of Biden. And they just keep blaming the Democrats for what actually, the lack of anything that they're doing, or what they're actually doing, which is just funneling more money to the 1%. But how does this happen, right? How do you completely rewrite that recent history in the public mind? How does it happen? I'll tell you exactly how. With a printing press, with a Daily Fail front page, with a Sun headline, repeated every single day, with newscast that is just saying the same things over and over and over, with Fox News, GB News, Talk TV, etc., etc. Now, let me introduce you to the real government of the United Kingdom. Not the Prime Minister, not Parliament, not the House of Lords, not even Buckingham Palace itself. And this will come to no surprise to most of you, or perhaps all of you. Men. Let's say 4 billionaires. And between them, they control what 67 million people read, watch, and ultimately believe. Number 1, Murdoch. Australian-born, American citizen, owner of News UK, which publishes The Sun, the most widely read newspaper in Britain, and The Times. Between July 2019 and September 2020 alone, Murdoch's News Corp had 40 meetings with government ministers, more than any other media group in the country. His company has paid out over £1 billion in legal settlements for phone hacking and press intrusion, illegally accessing the private voicemails of murder victims, grieving military families, and members of the royal family. £1 billion in criminal settlements. And his papers still set the national agenda. Number 2, Viscount, I have difficulty saying that word, so Viscount Rothermere. His company, DMG Media, owns the Daily Fail, the Mail on Sunday, the Eye, and Metro, and many, many, many more. According to 2025 Media Reform Coalition report, Rothermere controls 43% of the UK's entire national newspaper market, nearly half the country's printed news, in one aristocratic family's hands, right? The same family, by the way, whose patriarch, the first Viscount Rothermere, ran a famous 1934 Daily Fail headline praising Adolf Hitler. The ideology has softened, the method has not. Third, the Barclay family, who owns the Daily Telegraph and the Spectator, the intellectual engine of British conservatism for 2 centuries. And the fourth, you know, we will put back in the Murdochs here, okay? Because they also, what is it, Murdoch and their associates, also reaches into broadcast through things like Talk TV and historic influence over Sky News before its sale, right? Now, these men are not neutral observers. The Rothermere press has spent decades pushing what analysts describe as an anti-immigration, anti-Europe, right-wing perspective, consistently, relentlessly, and with devastating political effect. The Sun's front page, the day before the 2016 Brexit referendum, screamed, "Believe in Britain." You see that? Believe in Britain. 52% of voters chose leave the next day. Do you think that's a coincidence? Maybe you do. When these papers decide a prime minister is finished, they are finished. When they decide a narrative is true, it becomes true in the minds of millions of people who trust what they read with their morning tea. When they decide someone is the enemy, guess what? That person becomes the enemy. This is not conspiracy theory, folks. This is documented. It is a matter of public record. This is history. And right now, they have decided who comes next. And now enters Nigel Farage, the man who helped architect Brexit, who spent decades stoking fear about immigration, who built his entire political career telling British people that their problems are caused by outsiders, by Brussels bureaucrats, by immigrants, by a global elite. His party, Reform UK, is now polling as the most popular party in Britain. The irony. A YouGov mega poll projected Reform winning over 300 parliamentary seats. Electoral calculus modeling gave Farage a potential 74-seat governing majority, enough to rule Britain alone without a single coalition partner. Nigel Farage, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Can you just imagine? But then again, you know, the orange the orange situation. So all things are possible. The man who broke Britain with Brexit is now being positioned as the man who will save it. I'm going to ask you this directly. Does that make any sense to you? I mean, any at all? Because it shouldn't, and it wouldn't, unless you had a machine powerful enough to make people forget, to make people feel, to replace memory with emotion and facts with fury. This is the Trump playbook, the conservative playbook, the far-right playbook, exported across the Atlantic. Step 1, create chaos or exploit existing chaos. Step 2, blame the other side with relentless emotional messaging. Step 3, serve the anger of a frustrated public. Step 4, when the country is desperate enough, broken enough, exhausted enough, they hand you the wheels. And it's happening. We have seen it over and over and over again. Look at the riots that keep happening in the UK. After Brexit failed to deliver its promises, after living standards dropped, after the NHS imploded, after 7 prime ministers in a decade, the people are furious. And Farage is standing there with a megaphone, pointing at Labour, pointing at immigrants, pointing at anything and everything except the mirror, except them taking responsibility. None at all. After Reform won hundreds of council seats in May 2026, those are local elections, Farage declared it a historic shift in British politics. And the press, the very same press owned by Murdoch and Rothermere, they are amplifying him every single day, celebrating him, normalizing him every single day. Reform here to stay. That's what the headlines sing. Farage could be prime minister. The front page screams. The narrative machine doesn't just report this rise, it manufactures it. Now, I want to give you an example of how conservatives play on our emotions and how the things that you see, the things that you hear coming out of media, you have to do your homework. You really do. Because other people are not doing it, number one. And number two, don't trust what the media is saying to you. So I'll give you an example. The leader of the Conservative Party in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, stood in Parliament and made this grandiose statement that the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, spends over $200,000 in catering for the flights that he takes. So when the Prime Minister and members of his cabinet or ministers or business people, and they fly off to the G7 meeting, or they fly off to Europe or Asia to, open doors for business and so on, that the catering alone is costing taxpayers $200,000. So you can imagine you as a normal person, right? A working class person. You hear that the Prime Minister is spending $200,000 on catering. I mean, my first question would be, what are you eating? Is it just caviar and the most expensive champagne? Is that it? I mean, is the lobster and salmon being flown in from Mars? Because that's quite expensive. You see, they made that statement, but what they're not saying, what's important is all the stuff that they don't say, that they leave out of the statement. The $200,000 is not just for catering. It's part of catering, but the $200 is what is paid for the aircraft maintenance, for fuel, for the staff, for the people on the flight, for landing fees, airport fees, all these other items that are included in any flight taking off from one point to another, of how much it would cost. But they don't say that. So they look for one specific line that is going to make you outraged, but also that makes sense to you that you should be outraged. Right? Because, I mean, $200,000 in catering.
I've decided to withdraw from the World Cup and return to my wife to stay by her side as we welcome the birth of our child. I know this decision comes rather abruptly. The team is right in the crucial knockout stage, and every match is a grueling battle. Everyone is giving their all to chase victory. As a footballer, I love this sport deeply, cherish my teammates who fight alongside me, and hold every fan who supports me close to my heart. Yet when my wife told me her due date was drawing near, and when I pictured her enduring this monumental yet daunting journey all alone. My heart made it clear. My family needs me right now. I have to go back. I've spoken at length with the head coach and all my teammates about this matter. They offered their full support without hesitation, and the team has drawn up thorough tactical contingency plans. I assure everyone that I will stick to a structured training regimen.
I think it's anyone else's business what he gets up to after training. From my perspective, I think someone labelled it disgusting, and I think for a start that's not a way to label a birth. Like he said, it only happens once. You know, your first child, welcoming them to the world is a blessing, and you don't get that opportunity. There's a lot of times where you're away from family and friends during the season, and it's very difficult periods. So to miss that would be tough, and I see where he's coming from. I think he has all right to go back and be there. You know, I think we're very privileged men at the end of the day, and I'm sure he will have a lot of support to be able to get back and get there as quickly as possible. Make sure he's there to support her and then fly back out. So I don't think it's anyone else's business what he gets up to after training, and if he goes back and does that, I think that's fair enough. I don't think it's anyone else's business.
Kind of pick-me is this from a French journalist? The world is up in arms because Doku wants to be beside his wife who's delivering his first baby. You have a French journalist who happens to be a woman saying this? You're leaving a World Cup just to cut an umbilical cord. She goes on to say, are you seriously telling me these players have sacrificed everything to come to the World Cup and you're leaving just to cut an umbilical cord? You're lucky enough to play in a World Cup. It's an incredible privilege, and hundreds of footballers would do anything to be in your position. That opportunity might never come around again in your life, and you're just going to throw it all away to attend your child's birth. It's a moment where the father really isn't needed. He has a symbolic role. You hold her hand and take a photo, and then what? You're going to miss 10 hours, experience an emotional high, and be exhausted afterwards. You can't miss a World Cup. Well, as someone who has played in a World Cup and who has also given birth, let me tell you this. The hardest thing I have ever done in this lifetime, and the thing that I am most proud of, is bringing my baby earthside. And I do not know how I would have done that without my husband beside me. Birth can be extremely complicated. Anything can happen. And when you are delivering your first baby especially, that is a massive moment for the woman and the man. Because guess what? That is the mother and the father. To have a female journalist with this take is giving pick-me behavior, and it's extremely disappointing because she has 2 children herself. To go on and say that a World Cup opportunity might never come around again in his life is extremely diabolical, because there is a chance that he could go to another World Cup, but if he misses the birth of his first child, he will never get that opportunity again. And guess what? Family, the birth of your baby is much bigger than a World Cup, is much bigger than football. Shame on you.
If I'm allowed to say this, but I'm not actually a big fan of the World Cup. However, can we stop pretending that dads are not necessary? The irony of reading this article on Father's Day is not lost on me, and I have to speak about it. First of all, I have an amazing dad, so let us not ever downplay the role of a dad. Secondly, this woman is going to say that this man, whose name is Doku, who I believe plays for Belgium, who is about to have a child, his first child, not that it matters, but yes, babes, it's extra special, it's the first time, okay? His first child, and he has said that even if Belgium reaches the quarterfinals, he's going to go home for the birth of his baby. And I don't see how that is controversial. Apparently, he's getting a lot of slack. Why? Because this woman, France Pierron, says, or Pierron, France, je ne sais pas. Anyway, she says that there are hundreds of footballers who would kill to be in your shoes. It may never happen again in your life. You know what else might never happen again? Having a baby for the first time. Imagine that. She goes on to say that the birth of a child is, quote, a disgusting moment. Like, my girl, how is bringing life into the world disgusting? Who is this person? Secondly, she then says that the dad is of no use. He's useless. Now, I'm not sure how many babies this woman has had. I didn't do any research. But to say that having a man by your side during childbirth, he has no function, is beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. And then we complain that men aren't doing enough. But then we also, in an effort to empower women and say that, yeah, babes, you go get it, we have to downplay the role of a man. Like, there is no need. We can still empower women. We can still give them the space to fulfill all of their deepest desires and reach their full feminine divine potential without having to shit on a man. Like, let us just stop pretending that men are useless. Let us also say, actually, men, times have changed a little. This is how things are changing, and this is what we would like you to do, because yes, you are absolutely necessary. And ultimately, even if my children do not have a two-parent household, I believe in a two-parent household like nobody's business. So my guy, I hope you met the plane. I hope you go see your baby being born, and I hope that you see and endure and experience all of the things with your beautiful woman, mother of your child, by your side. And France Pierron, babes, nobody asked. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this.
We've sent him a text this morning to congratulate him and his wife. I think having a child is the most beautiful thing in the world that you can have, and being there is more than normal as a dad, as a mom, obviously. But yeah, being there as a dad for myself, I have 3, and it's memories you can't take back. So yeah, I'm very happy for him. Yeah, we've
Absolutely remarkable. I wasn't going to make any comment. I was just going to play those TikTok videos and just for you to watch them and come to your own conclusions. But, this fits in really well with what I'm trying to contextualize here about the media. Black men are often stereotyped as absent fathers. Yet when a black man chooses family over fame and wants to be present for the birth of his first child, he's criticized for it. If he stays, he's selfish. If he leaves, he's ungrateful. The problem isn't his decision. The problem is the narrative. A good husband and a good father showing up for his family should be celebrated, not condemned. One of the GB News commentators said about this issue, he should just get back to work, and so should she. Get on with what you're supposed to do. These people honestly think that we still exist in slavery times. They really do. They honestly do. And it's like the black person, the black body is there for their entertainment. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Especially also knowing, right, the mortality rates that black women have when they're giving birth. The issues. Here is a man who has spoken with the team, spoken with his captain, has spoken with whoever he needs to speak with, is trying to do the right thing. He wants to be there. Do you know how many NHL players have taken time off to be at the side of their wife? Many of them. And of course, hockey is a majority white sort of player game. I don't see the same kind of backlash. I don't see the big headlines. Oh, hockey player took time off to be at the side of his wife giving birth during the playoffs. Makes you think, right? Well, let's continue on with our main topic. Now I'd like to take you somewhere else for a moment, because what I've been describing, this weaponization of media, this manufacturing of public opinion, this coordinated assault on people who challenge or threaten the status quo, it is not new at all. We have seen this playbook before, not in a history book, but in a political science class. We watched it happen in real time for nearly a decade now to one family. His name is Harry, her name is Meghan, and together they are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And I want to make an argument today that what was done to Harry and Meghan and is still being done is not separate from what is happening to British politics. It is the same operation, run by the same people for the same purpose. So let me show you the playbook, okay, point by point. Tactic 1, the outsider narrative. With Meghan, she was framed from day one as an outsider, American, divorced, biracial. someone who didn't belong in the British establishment. The coverage wasn't just critical, it was othering. It said, she is not one of us. With Labour, the same papers have for decades framed Labour politicians as outsiders to proper British values, not real patriots, not real British. Jeremy Corbyn was portrayed as a terrorist sympathizer. Starmer was mocked as a metropolitan elite who didn't understand real Britain. The message is always the same. They don't belong. They are not one of us. They are the threat. Tactic number 2, the drip of negative stories. With Meghan, it wasn't one big scandal. It was 1,000 small stories. She made a staffer cry. She spent too much on an avocado. She wore the wrong dress. She breathed the wrong way. Individually, each story seemed almost trivial, but collectively, delivered daily across multiple outlets, year after year, they're able to construct basically a monster. With Labour, it's not one catastrophic failure. It's 1,000 small stories. Starmer looked awkward at this event. Angela Rayner said the wrong thing. This policy contradicts that speech. Day after day, the drip becomes a flood. This is how you destroy a reputation without ever having to prove a single defining accusation. Quite dangerous, right? And now, tactic number 3, manufacturing betrayal. With Meghan and Harry, the narrative was that they had betrayed Britain, that they left. They went on Oprah, right? They spoke about mental health. For Meghan, she dared to refuse to be silenced, right? Because the women are supposed to just shut up. So this was framed not as self-preservation, but as something like treason, basically. Treason against the crown. With Labour, any attempt to deviate from what the press has decided, that whatever they have decided is acceptable, is framed as betrayal. Betrayal of British values, betrayal of voters, betrayal of the working class. The press defines the rules and then punishes anyone who breaks them. Tactic 4, gaslighting the victim. Prince Harry stood up in 2019 and published a statement. One of the most remarkable things a member of the royal family has ever done publicly, calling out a ruthless campaign by the tabloid press against his wife. He compared it to what his mother, Princess Diana, endured before her death. The media's response? Well, they attacked him for the statement. They said he was paranoid, overreacting, playing the victim. Sound familiar? When Starmer or any Labour figure pushed back on negative coverage, they were accused of playing the victim, of being too sensitive, of blaming the media instead of accepting responsibility. That, my friends, is gaslighting. And it is a feature, not a bug, of this system. Tactic 5, the racial and cultural undercurrent. 71 British MPs from multiple political parties signed a letter stating that some of the coverage of Meghan Sussex contained colonial undertones. They wrote that the press treatment reflected a pattern of bias that went beyond normal royal scrutiny. The British tabloid press has consistently used coded, and sometimes not so coded, language around race, culture, and identity to other Meghan. And that same coded language is used in political coverage, immigration, British values, who belongs, who doesn't. Ask yourself, what are they really saying when they use that language? And who benefits from those divisions? Next tactic number 6, weaponization or weaponizing the public against the target. Here is the most chilling part of the playbook. The press doesn't just attack, it recruits the public into the attack through comment sections, through opinion polls, through what do you think segments, through social media amplification. With Meghan, millions of ordinary British people were recruited into a sustained online and cultural hatred of a woman they've never met, based on entirely on narrative constructed by newspapers with financial and political motives. With Labour, millions of ordinary British people were recruited into the belief that a party that inherited the worst economic situation in modern history had somehow caused the situation. The public becomes the weapon, and they don't even know they're being used. Tactic number 7, protecting the actual power. Here is the unifying thread. The Sussex smear campaign served a very specific purpose beyond tabloid sales. It kept the spotlight away from the phone hacking trials. It kept the spotlight away from the billions in legal payouts. It kept the spotlight away from the question of why the most powerful media empire in Britain had been illegally hacking the phones of murder victims and was never held fully accountable. The anti-Labour campaign serves an equally specific purpose. It protects the financial interests of billionaires, media owners who benefit enormously from conservative tax and regulatory policy. It protects Farage, a man who, if elected, would be the least likely politician in Britain to ever meaningfully regulate the press. They attack the Sussexes to protect themselves. They attack Labour to protect their profits. It is that simple, and it is that devastating. So let me now say out loud what millions of people are thinking, but what almost nobody in the mainstream media dares to say. The United Kingdom is not a fully functioning democracy. Not right now. Not in any meaningful sense. And that goes for many other countries too. Because democracy requires an informed public. And an informed public requires a free, independent, diverse press. What Britain has instead is a handful of billionaires who have decided what stories Britain tells about itself. And that and what stories always serves their financial and political interest. The story says Labour is incompetent. Conservatives are the natural party of government. Reform is a fresh start. Immigrants are the problem. The Sussexes are traitors. The BBC is biased against the right. This is what scholars Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman called manufactured consent, the process by which mass media doesn't just report on public opinion, it shapes it, it creates it, it manufactures the consent of the governed on behalf of the powerful. And it works, it really does. I mean, there's many examples. Because Millions of good, decent, hardworking British people have observed this story. Not because they're stupid, even though I do sometimes say stupid, but because they have been surrounded by it. From the newspapers on the corner shop counter, from the talk radio in the taxi, from the website headline on their phones, from their friends who read the same papers day after day after day. This is how brainwashing actually works in a modern democracy. It doesn't look like propaganda, it looks like your morning paper. It sounds like a friendly radio presenter. It feels like common sense. And the politicians, well, every single one of them, from Labor to Conservative, Reform, Liberal, Democrat, all of them, they all know this. They all bow to it. They all take the meetings. They all seek the endorsements. Because crossing Murdoch means the Sun newspapers turns on you. Crossing Rothermere means that the Daily Fail hunts you down. Ask Tony Blair, who literally flew to Australia to seek Murdoch's blessing before becoming Prime Minister, allegedly. Ask Gordon Brown, who wept on the phone to Rebecca Brooks, then editor of The Sun, when they withdrew support, allegedly. Ask Keir Starmer, who is now on the exit door. The media doesn't just cover power in Britain. The media is the power in Britain. And the question you have to ask yourself right now is this. In a country where four men control what 67 million people think, who is actually governing Britain? And is anyone coming to save it? Okay, so I don't want to leave you in despair. I want to leave you with something more powerful than outrage. I want to give you a roadmap because the solution exists, okay? There are solutions out there. They have been proposed, they have been drafted into legislation, they have been recommended by formal government inquiries, and they have been blocked every single time by the very people they would affect. Let me walk you through what would need to happen. And this doesn't go just for the UK, this goes for many countries, okay? What genuine, radical, brave action would look like, not just from politicians, from the monarchy too, because the institution that has been most damaged by this media machine is the crown itself. Even though we know they're in cahoots, they're in bed together. But it's time for a divorce, okay? Really, because the relationship is rather toxic. So, what politicians must do, the sort of radical steps. In 2011, after the phone hacking scandal broke, after it was revealed that Rupert Murdoch's journalist had hacked the voicemail of murdered schoolgirl Millie Dowler, the British government launched the Leveson inquiry. Lord Justice Leveson spent a year investigating the culture, practices, and ethics of the British press. In November 2021, in November 2012, he delivered a landmark report recommending a new, genuinely independent regulatory body, independent of both government and industry, with the power to impose fines and demand corrections. The press industry lobbied furiously against it. They created their own regulator, IPSO, which critics described as the press regulating itself, which it is. Section 40 of the Crime and Courts Act, which would have incentivized press organizations to join the independent regulator, was eventually repealed by the Conservative government in 2023. A brave government would implement Part 2 of Levinson, fully without apology. Break up media monopolies. The Media Reform Coalition 2025 report is explicit. Government, regulators, and parliament must act to break up corporate media giants that dominate UK public discourse. New laws establishing clear ownership thresholds. No single entity should control more than a defined percentage of the national media market. Forced divestment where those thresholds are already exceeded. That means Rothermere's, Viscount Rothermere, 43% market share would be legally compelled to break that thing up, an expanded fit and proper persons test, currently only applied to broadcast takeovers, applied to all media acquisitions. No more foreign billionaires buying British newspapers without proving a genuine, sustained commitment to editorial independence and ethical governance. The crisis is no longer just about newspapers. Facebook, Google, and X, formerly Twitter, now amplify tabloid narratives to audiences the print papers could never reach alone. The 2025 Media Reform Report demands that big tech companies be legally required to promote plurality and diversity in how they surface news content, not just algorithmic reward the most outrage generating headline. I let I despise that whole algorithm thing. It's just awful. Awful. It's anyways. Political leaders must have the courage to stand up publicly. This is perhaps the hardest step because it requires personal courage, but it is essential. No prime minister since the Levinson inquiry has been willing to stand at a platform and say clearly, the concentration of media power in Britain is a threat to our democracy, and I will act. Starmer tried to maintain favorable relationships with the press. It didn't save him. It never saves them. The next Labour leader, or any leader who genuinely wants to reform Britain, must be willing to make media reform a flagship, defining commitment. And they must be willing to endure the media war that's going to follow, the attacks that are going to follow, because the press will retaliate. They always do. The question is whether a politician with genuine public support can outlast that retaliation. I think the answer is yes, but only if they bring the people with them. Explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. Take a page out of what Prince Harry has done. Now, what the monarchy must do, which I think would be brave steps. Let's talk about the institution that has perhaps the most to gain from media reform and has historically done the least to push for it. The British royal family. For decades, Buckingham Palace operated on a policy of quiet accommodation with the tabloid press. Don't rock the boat, don't sue, don't fight back, give the photographs their shot, give the photographers their shot, brief the right editors, and hope that the relationship stays manageable. That strategy has failed, catastrophically failed. I mean, it's partially working now because of the Sussexes, because they're able to create this narrative of the villains, and here are the goody two-shoes, right? The ones that have done nothing wrong. Princess Diana died in Paris in a tunnel being chased by the same press. Prince Harry has been through a decade of coordinated vilification of his wife and his family. And the institution itself, the monarchy, has been fundamentally weakened by the tabloid culture. And it's refused to confront it. I mean, when the first biracial, at least that it's registered, grandchild to the king was born, and you have a BBC commentator, personality, whatever, implies that that child is a chimpanzee. And the king, at the time, the prince, the heir, said absolutely nothing. It's just vile. Absolutely vile. I'll never comprehend that, ever. So the king should publicly, explicitly support press reform. King Charles III has a unique constitutional and moral platform. He is not a politician. He cannot campaign for parties, but he can speak about the health of democracy. He can reference the documented harm of press abuse. He can lend the moral weight of the crown to the principle that a free press must also be an accountable press. His silence on press reform, while his own family has been a documented victim of it, is a choice. And it is time that he does something different, because that choice is wrong. The royal family should formally reconcile with the Sussexes, publicly and meaningfully. This is not just about family, it is about institutional credibility. The narrative that destroyed Harry and Meghan, oh, the difficult Meghan, the ungrateful Harry, the couple who betrayed Britain, was all manufactured by the same press that is now manufacturing the rise of Farage and the fall of Labour. If the royal family were to publicly acknowledge that Harry and Meghan were the victims of a sustained coordinated media campaign, that the reporting was not journalism but weaponized propaganda, it would do two things at once. It would restore justice to a family that has been treated unjustly, and it would be the single most powerful act of public education about the true nature of the British tabloid press that any institution would deliver. Because if the king's own son says, "My wife was destroyed by a machine of lies," and the king stands beside him and says, "He is right," suddenly the entire country has to reckon with what that machine has also done to their politics, to their government, and their democracy. The palace must stop briefing against family members to the press. I mean, honestly, this is an open secret. Royal sources, palace insiders, anonymous briefing. The institution itself has participated in the machine that destroys its own members. That must end, full stop. The monarchy cannot call for press accountability while quietly using that same press as a weapon. So, here we are. Britain in 2026, 7 prime ministers in a decade, a Labour government that inherited a broken country and was destroyed before it could begin to fix it meaningfully. A man who helped break Britain, now positioned to run it. A royal family fractured by the same machine that fractures politics. And 4 billionaires, unelected, unaccountable, and utterly unchallenged, deciding what 67 million people think, feel, and vote. This is the United Kingdom, and it is standing at the edge of something very dangerous. But here's what I need you to know. Here's what I need you to hold on to. This is not inevitable. This is not permanent. This is not the natural order of things. Democracy has been stolen before and taken back. Media monopolies have been broken before. Propaganda machines have been exposed before. And when people understand what is being done to them, when the curtain is pulled back, the machine loses its power. The Leveson inquiry happened because ordinary people demanded it. The phone hacking scandal broke because a few brave journalists refused to stay quiet. 71 British MPs stood up and said that the treatment of Meghan Sussex had colonial undertones. And they were right. Change is possible, but it requires something this system is designed to prevent. It requires you being aware. It requires you sharing this. It requires you asking the questions that the morning papers really don't ask. And it doesn't want you to ask. When you see Farage on the front page, ask yourself, who put him there and why? When you see Meghan Sussex described as a threat, ask, what are they hiding behind that story? When you see another prime minister fall, ask, who decided it was time and who benefits from the chaos? Because the most dangerous thing, the thing that Murdoch and Rothermere and the entire edifice of concentrated media power, what they fear about all of this is the public, is that they have a thinking public, a public that is able to think for itself. Britain can be saved. Other countries can be saved that are going through the same thing. But not by the politicians alone, not by the monarchy alone, not by the regulators alone. It will be saved when enough people look at what's happening, really look and say, not in my name, not in my vote, not on my watch. That moment may be closer than you think. If anything, I think that moment is here, right here. Okay, beautiful people. I don't know. Was this a heavy one? I don't know. Maybe. Well, it's at least informative, right? A lot of information, and I hope you've gotten something out of it. I really, 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 really hope so. So, I mean, thinking about what that football player, that whole machine of the media, the power that they've got. Because you have to remember, right? It's a choice. Reporters make choices. Media company make choices. Imagine if that French reporter had said instead something in a headline where it said, the importance of fatherhood. Football player puts family first to witness the miracle of the birth of his first child. A human being, the birth of a human being. And the way she's like, oh, it's just disgusting. What do you mean disgusting? Disgusting that is a black child that's being born, or disgusting just in general? I don't know. But it's fascinating that how she decided to frame that story, and how GB News decided to frame that story, and the other conservative outlets. So, my friends, listen, don't believe everything you see, don't believe everything you hear, but believe everything I say. No. Listen, if anytime if I bring you something and I get updated information, I will update you. I honestly will. Okay, I don't want you walking away with incorrect information. Also, quick apology again. I uploaded. Well, I didn't upload it. I finished, and then I was going through it really quickly to make sure things are kind of okay before I uploaded it. And there's a whole section, the whole end part section that I'm doing right now. No sound whatsoever. So I'm like blah 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 for what? For 20-25 minutes? Nothing. I held my head and I went, oh, baby Jesus, baby Jesus. Anyways, we recorded again. Right now, it's super late. I'm super over the time I told you folks I was going to be streaming live. So I'm going to end this here now. But before, if you're a new subscriber, thank you for being here. If you just discovered us, please do subscribe. Do all the things that the algorithm would like us to do, that evil algorithm. So like, comment, share, post, dance, do your little thing, come back again, and interject, entertain, all those things, okay? Recommend, write a letter to the editor, all of that. Thank you once again for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you to the Royal Court. To each and every one of you, thank you for your support. I appreciate it so very, 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 very much. Do visit Buy Me a Coffee, please. The link is going to be in the comment section, and that's where will be uploading things like music and art and all of that. I'm using it sort of like the storefront of Majesty Sussex Report. Now, be kind to yourself, okay? Be kind to your loved ones and to that stranger crossing your path. Be kind to them also. You never know. Love you. God bless. Until we speak again. Mwah.
Some people leave footprints. Some leave entire landscapes. Years may pass, cities may change. The sound of their laughter remains. Hearts that never left, hearts that never left, living in the spaces, living in the breath. Hearts that never left. Still here, still here. I hear them in certain songs. I find them in familiar streets. Sometimes in silence, sometimes in unexpected places. Love doesn't disappear, it changes form. Hearts that never left, hearts that never left, living in spaces, living in the breath. Hearts that never left. Maybe the people we love never truly leave. Maybe they become part of the light we carry.